On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt and Nick have moved to Wednesdays to break down the final season of The Bad Batch, which starts today with a deep dive breakdown of the first 3 episodes. What really mattered, cool Easter eggs and references, and where things may be going, all will be covered for Season 3's epic debut. When the dudes are done batching, they'll touch on the potential future of Asajj Ventress, as well as the new rumored Mandalorian game from Respawn, the creators of Cal and Milk Toast Kestis. Of course, the show will end with the question of the week responses and the latest round of top 5 Star Wars fan artist features. Punch it, Chewie. Hey, now, everybody but Nick. Welcome back to the Star Wars Time Show. Matt here to kick things off while we wait for my Chewbacca. All right. If he's got a few dingleberries in his hair, he's got to get them cut out. Now, Nick's got, he's got some meeting stuff to wrap up. I guess they called him in late, unplanned. So he's wrapping up a meeting, but don't worry, he'll be here to help me break down that Bad Batch Season 3 triple episode premiere. Woo freaking who? All right, who we got up here in the live stream? Don't forget, if you want to join the live stream, we have moved to Wednesdays, 5 p. East, youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show. All right, we got Johnny Asajj in here, Nova, Bat, and of course, JOD. Welcome everyone to the new day, new show, same stupidity. Okay? I was really hoping Nick would have been here, but he'll get here. He'll get here at some point. Some point, right? He'll get here at some point. Anyways, yeah, you're right. Bat's bringing it up. Might as well get to it while we wait for young Nick here. I'm not going to waste anybody's time. We'll get through the pop culture talk. That way, when Nick gets here, we can get right into some Star Wars. So, as Bat is proclaiming here in the live stream, saying Madam Webb wasn't that terrible. Some bad visual choices at the end. But, I don't know, Bat. That movie's pretty rough. I'll tell you, my 7.5-year-old little lady, she quite enjoyed it. That's why we went. Like I told Nick last week, I'm like, sometimes I got to pick movies that are going to work for more than just me. So I didn't go watch his Lisa Frankenstein or whatever. I did fall on the Madam Webb grenade, and I don't know, like Bat said, I don't think it's a 13% as the critics have it on Rotten Tomatoes. But I'm right in line with the fans, so about 45 to 55%. It's Sony Marvel, so think Morbius, stuff like that. I'm not really going to rip on Venom that much because I actually think the Venom movies have been pretty decent from Sony. But this Madam Web, it seems like they definitely missed a few opportunities, if you will. We could have had I don't know, maybe some more superheroes that people know about show up. Maybe just once. Maybe not have guys dressed just like Spider-Man and they're not. Some of the acting is rough. Not on the ladies' part. I actually think what's her name? Dakota Johnson, she's fine. The 3 younger girls, I think Sydney Sweeney's in one of them. I think that's fine. But the villain, holy shit, is he terrible. Absolutely terrible. I don't know if they were going for a stereotype with a Latin American man or what, but his acting is terrible. And it's not even like his accent. I mean, yeah, he's got an accent, but he just delivers his lines as if he doesn't know how to act. It's as if I was paid to do it and was just sitting there reading a script. So, it's weird. It's just like, whatever. Sony, just give up the Spider-Man license, please. I'm not sure Disney and Marvel can do much better with it, the way they're going these days, but they can definitely do much better than what Sony has been up to. So that's that. I checked out another flick this week some of you might have already heard about. It's on Amazon Prime. But if you are a fellow lover of the Snoop Dogg like myself, then you have to check out the Underdogs movie, From Blunts to Runts, on Amazon Prime. Dropped a few weeks ago, like I said, at the end of January. He essentially plays a retired football star, think like a Randy Moss type. And as part of some community service, he ends up coaching a youth football league. And what makes this so worth watching is it's rated R, yet the cast is predominantly kids. So if you're down with that type of setup where it might get a little uncomfortable, you might be like, hey, let's watch a family film. You throw it on, and the first thing you hear is like F this, F that, N-word this, N-word that. Yeah, it's not your typical family film, but it definitely has that Snoop Dogg appeal to it. So, like I said, if he's one of your heroes in life, like mine, I love this guy. I mean, if I could pull him out of my stack of toys here and show you, I've got a beautiful, like chibi vinyl Snoop Dogg with a fat blunt hanging out of his mouth. One of my favorite collectibles, 100%. All right. So, still no Nick. Not sure what's happened to him. Must be a pretty deep movie here, but I digress. I'll keep pushing on, Nick. We got you, buddy. We'll get us through this at some point in time. That's kind of my little pop culture talk this week. 2 flicks. One, I think worth checking out, especially if you have Amazon Prime. Even though those dicks now want you to pay more to not get ads, it's like, come on. Shouldn't some of us be grandfathered into some of these plans? I mean, if you were a Prime member back when it was, $79, shouldn't you just be grandfathered into whatever plan you signed up for? Enough with this bullshit where like, oh, hey, 10 years later, now, Prime's up to, $150, and now if you want to watch our movies, you're still going to have to watch ads. But you can pay us an extra $3 a month if you don't want those ads. It's similar to what Max has done. I mean, Max are like, hey, even though you were already locked in at the top tier, we're creating a new super top tier where now if you want to watch stuff in 4K in Dolby Atmos, you have to pay us extra. I don't know. Maybe that's why Christopher Nolan was saying, hey, people, quit buying streaming films. Go back to discs. He might have a point. Although I don't really think I have much more room in this basement to handle a fresh collection of Blu-rays or whatever comes next after that. All right, so I guess while Nick is here, I'll kind of get into some of the newsy posts while we wait, because we want young Nick to do the Bad Batch breakdown, right? Anyone else? That's like a must. We need young Nick for that. But anyways, this just dropped today. So this is coming from Collider. Apparently it's an exclusive of theirs, but it's some Acolyte news. So I'm super pumped about the Acolyte. We've talked about this on the show ad nauseum. It should be something completely different for Star Wars fanboys and girls like myself, because we're finally going to get a story told through the lens of the bad guys. So the bad guy is going to be the protagonist in the movie. And as Leslie Headland has said, the showrunner, and I think she's probably written a few episodes, it's going to show a different side of the galaxy and possibly the Jedi. Will we get to see their hubris at its peak? Will we get to see some of their follies early on there, letting the Sith infiltrate the upper echelons of society, the Senate? Who knows? So I'm pumped about the Acolyte for that aspect, the unknown. And really the one leaked set photos we got probably over a year ago at this point in time, it looked great. I mean, you had that Wookiee Jedi. You have the High Republic Order is kind of kicking things around at this point in time when the show's coming out. So the Jedi are going to look different. They're probably going to act different. Maybe they're even more arrogant than we remember them. So But the news here, coming from Collider, and I don't know, it doesn't line up to me, but we'll see. Collider is reporting that the Acolyte is going to hit Disney Plus this summer on June 5th. So that's going to be about a month after Bad Batch ends its season 3, the series finale. It'll be a month after Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. So I don't know. I'm not completely cold on June 5 being the date, but I'm not fully sold on it either. It almost seems too close to the end of Bad Batch. But because Bad Batch is an animated series, and last year Disney did launch The Mandalorian while Bad Batch was still running, I think there could be some room to start a live action series only 1 month shortly after Bad Batch ends. You know, typically Disney likes to space out those live stream shows, but or live stream shows. But like I said, there is an example last year where they were willing to run 2 Star Wars shows concurrently. So one could make the guess that, hey, after a month off, we're going to go ahead and run the Acolyte. And if the Acolyte does drop June 5 and, you know, it has 8 episodes or so, that would get us through the summer. Then maybe you take a month off or so and get into Skeleton Crew or maybe Tales of the Jedi to kind of wrap the Disney Plus new Star Wars show season. So I hope this is true, the Acolyte June 5. But I don't know. It seems a little too close to the end of Bad Batch, and the date's just kind of odd. But I guess they did release Kenobi towards the end of May, early June. So there is also, I guess, proof of concept for that as well. All right, man. Hopefully I can keep vamping until Nick gets here if he's ever showing up. He'll be here someday, hopefully. If not, this could be a quick show, and it'll essentially just be a recap of my 15-minute deep dive of Bad Batch Season 3 premiere, which, hey, if you haven't checked it out yet after this show, or if you're listening post-haste, you're not here live, go ahead and pause and check out my video. I think a whopping 30 people have looked at it today. Because, yeah, I make shitty content, but I'm compelled to do it, and I do like it in the end. So let's go ahead and kick around here over to another story of note. I'll start with this one. See if I can delay this long enough for Nick to possibly show up here. This one is for you gamers out there. I don't know how many gamers listen to the SWTS. I know a lot of you are geezers like myself. I still game. I try to get in some game at least once a week, but not nearly like I used to. My 10 years in video game media kind of killed that, as well as becoming a dad. So, you know what I mean. But if this is true, this is going to be great for all of us. And it's something we've kind of talked about in the past that we would like. Things like that. But apparently Respawn, they're the people that have been making the Jedi Fallen and Jedi Survivor series, so not bad. They know Star Wars, they know what they're doing. They've also made Titanfall, and I believe they were one of the original Call of Duty developers, so they definitely have practice in making video games that involve shooting stuff, right? So that is a positive. But what is interesting for us Star Wars people, is that Respawn apparently is working on a first-person Mandalorian video game. Hold on, Nick has hit me up. I know this is great radio here. All right. Anyways, he's done with his meeting, but he's got to finish episode 3. So I told him, just go ahead and finish it. Come in when you're ready. I'll keep vamping here. But But like I said, Respawn, and this is coming from Insider Gaming, Tom Henderson in particular. He's been known to, break legit news. So I wouldn't say this is a grain of salt type of rumor, but it's also not 100% a stone cold lock. But like I said, Insider Gaming is reporting that Respawn Entertainment is currently developing on a first-person Star Wars game that will star a Mandalorian bounty hunter. All right, it's not clear if the bounty hunter is going to be Din Djarin, though. I mean, one would think that would make sense. He's marketable. You could slap Grogu on there and sell it to the Grogu crowd. But Insider Gaming was not committing to who this bounty hunter was. I'm also starting to think, specifically because of the time frame that they're saying this game's going to take place, which is the reign of the Galactic Empire, why not use Boba Fett? I mean, I know he doesn't classify himself as a Mandalorian, but pretty much everyone in the galaxy does, even other Mandalorians. So he would make a pretty great character to be a first-person Mando in a Respawn Entertainment video game. So I don't know about you, but I would definitely get down with a little Boba Fett. Now, maybe he's too popular, too known, and we want to roll with someone a little less popular. Like even I'd be fine with even a no-name Mandalorian, to be honest with you. I mean, just rolling around with a Mando, having their skill set at your disposal, everything on their, their wrist gauntlets, the jetpacks, their throwables, their blasters, their rifles, their pistols, I mean, it's their religion. So a game where you're playing as a character whose religion is weaponry and destruction and being ultra efficient at it, we don't really need a branded, named, famous Star Wars character. All right, I think Nick's coming in. But here's what else we have on this game. Thanks to Mandos having jetpacks, the game is going to kind of focus on mobility, and it will reward players for playing at a fast pace that is stylish. In fact, Insider Gaming is reporting that player health regeneration may be based on how many successive kills can be strung together. All right, so think about that type of stuff. Lots of potential in this game. The other notes they had here is the game is not going to be open world. Rather, it's going to be a kind of focused on linear levels set across the Star Wars galaxy, which is fine. I mean, you give us nice curated levels with cool environments, maybe some pickups, some things to wander around and look at. It doesn't need to be open world. And finally, it's not been confirmed yet if it's going to have a multiplayer mode. You think it would be kind of naturally suited for multiplayer with the jetpacks and other games that have gone with that type of mobility shooter, but that has not been confirmed. Can I help you? No, I'm just getting my... All right, can you take this with you? The walkie-talkie, sorry. That's little one checking in, getting her iPad. So, yeah. They're thinking this game is just now in the development, so it's probably 1 to 2 years out. And we all know gaming these days, it could be much longer than that. So we'll definitely be keeping our little lightsabers pointed at this Respawn Entertainment first-person Mandalorian game, which hopefully comes out in the near future, as in within the next 3 to 4 years, please. Although we should be getting Outlaws at some point this year, right? Maybe this summer, maybe in the fall. Back in the day when it was first announced, Outlaws would be coming out in a few weeks here. I think towards the end of March, but oh well. That's not the case. What is Nick doing? He keeps saying, I'm calling, he's not calling, he's coming, he's not coming. All right. I don't know. Oh, okay. He is finishing the episode. You guys like the live reports here for Nick? He got locked in a meeting till well after 5 o'clock, and he's trying to wrap the final episode. You're good, Nick. He's good. All right. So I guess I'll move into the last little newsy piece, and then Nick should be here for Bad Batch time. Perfect, right? Perfect. Plus, this is going to keep the show moving because when I have someone here with me, I tend to talk even more. So as we can tell, we're only 22 minutes in and we're already through almost all the topics outside of Bad Batch. If Nick was here, we'd probably still be talking about Matt and Webb. So it's working out. But anyways, our last little news post here to talk about is a future Bad Batch character, hopefully within the next few episodes. And that is Asajj Ventress. All right, so we all know she's coming back. That was revealed in the trailer. And speaking of reveals, I was kind of feeling bad today about putting out content like I always do. I still slap my spoiler warnings on it. And then I see the official Star Wars and Bad Batch accounts just like, oh, here's a clip. Here's a clip. Oh, by the way, yeah, this is going to be the episodes where Palpatine shows up. I know it's in the trailer, but still some people like that surprise. So I guess I don't feel that bad. But I do have some shorts out there right now. They should be hitting platforms throughout the week on Bad Batch. As always, we, as in me, would love your support. Give me those clicks. Give me those shares. Leave comments. Please, please, please. So anyways, back to this. Asajj Ventress. The Bad Batch creatives have teased that there could be more Asajj post the Bad Batch series finale. Okay, so the direct sat down with the head writer Jennifer Corbett and Brad Rao, who is the show's supervising director. And like I said, based on their conversations, it's starting to sound like season 3 of Bad Batch will not be the only property that is graced by the now resurrected Asajj. All right, so Brad Rao kind of talked about this decision to bring her back a bit more in this interview, so I'll kind of start there. He said, yeah, I mean, we're huge Ventress fans, and when we talked with our creative team to figure out that we could bring her into the storyline, we were very excited. We pulled designs from unaired arcs of the Clone Wars, which inspired the novel Dark Disciple, and we're not contradicting anything that happened in Dark Disciple. So, I mean, they've kind of come out and said that before, but they added in the layer that, hey, Asajj was going to look this way and kind of start doing some of these things in the Clone Wars until a lot of those ideas got canned when George sold to Disney. So it's funny how Asajj's journey is kind of panning out here, if you think about it. Started in Gennedy's Clone Wars, made it over to George's Clone Wars, became a staple character, was bad, then was gray, and then was starting to lean good. And she was such a popular character, and her arc was so interesting that they used aborted Clone Wars stories with her to create the Dark Disciple novel, which now, like I said, full circle, she's coming back. And Dark Disciple is going to be honored. So animated Asajj spawned Words and Shit Asajj, which potentially killed her, but now, thanks to animated Star Wars, Asajj has returned somehow. So, like I said, that's not the fresh news. Brad went into talk about her potential. And, as you listen, I'll kind of let you parse it out the way you feel like it, but here's what he had to say. But I will say that not all of the answers to the mystery of interest will be told in the Bad Batch show. So again, he's kind of talking about Asajj, her past, and really the way I was reading it, kind of how she was able to return. So it sounds like, yeah, we might get some of it, but not all of it. Not all of her mystery will be told in the Bad Batch. He went on to say there may be future answers down the road in something else. But it was really great to have the character in our show to interact with our characters. It was really cool. So, I mean, there may be future answers down the road in something else. What is the something else? It could be anything. It could be another book. Dark Disciples 2. It could be a comic book run. it could be a fresh animated series that we don't even know about yet, which, fingers crossed, pretty please, because so far Star Wars animated series have been pretty freaking awesome. I mean, if you think about the Clone Wars and how that kind of aged like a fine wine, and then Rebels, Bad Batch, Visions, Tales, hell, I'll even say Star Wars Resistance. I mean, animated Star Wars has really had a great track record if you sit down and think about it and, get over some of the weird things that people first felt when animated Star Wars became a thing. Well, that's not Star Wars. Ugh. Anakin would never have a Padawan. Blah, 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 blah. Snips is stupid. Babadoo. Blah, blah, beep, 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 babadoo. But yeah, it's pretty great. So I would love her to show up in a fresh animated series. Maybe it's the Asajj and Quinlan show. Who knows? I would also really appreciate her crossing over into live action. You could always use a character like Asajj in the Mandoverse if she's meant to make it that far. So I would take that as well. But, there's so much potential to tell more stories in the timeline between the Bad Batch's end all the way up to Andor and Star Wars Rebels. So who knows? But I do like to hear about Asajj not just being used for Bad Batch. I think that's something Nick and I talked about. It'd be kind of stupid. We should just, if you're going to bring her back, if you're going to change the outcome of canon material, it needs to be purposeful and it needs to have a lasting impact. And just having her pop up in an episode 2 of Bad Batch would not achieve that. So I'm glad to hear that the team over there, at least Disney and Lucasfilm, it sounds like they do have plans to tell more Asajj stories just in something else that isn't called Bad Batch Season 3. Thinking about the live action aspect of Asajj's return, one thing where you could make a direct tie into maybe even Ahsoka would be the Night Sisters and Thrawn's pact, right? We know they end up on Dathomir, who was laid to rest on Dathomir and seemingly was resurrected. So you could argue, depending on what we learn about Asajj and how she came back to life, you could argue that she's coming back in Bad Batch to potentially set up some narrative threads that are going to be paid off in Ahsoka Season 2. What were all those caskets for that Thrawn brought back from Peridia? Once on Dathomir, will they be able to use some of the same mystical powers, dark magic that we've seen from the Clone Wars, like Mother Talzin would use or Daka would use to raise the dead? So possibly in Bad Batch, we could get some insights into more insights into Dathomirian culture, some of the dark magic that the mothers get into, the witches, and how that could lead to a resurrection, which then, like I said, would have a bridge or a through line up to Ahsoka Season 2, when potentially Thrawn and the Night Sisters, the Great Mothers, that is, resurrect that army we think they brought back with them. All right, so we still don't have a Nick. So there is one other thing I saw over here on leaks. This popped up here. Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection that releases on Nintendo Switch March 14th. So I'm guessing they're talking Battlefront 1 and 2 from back in the early aughts. Which would be fantastic. The Switch actually has a lot of good old school Star Wars compilations, if you will, like discs that have multiple games on it. I know they got a great one. I think it's got Jedi Academy, Outcast, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, and possibly Pod Racing. I mean, that's a hell of a collection of games here. But it's how many. You also run into the conundrum: how many times could we possibly buy the same game? Obviously, getting on the Switch, you get that portability, the mobility. So if you own it on a console, I guess you could kind of get that bump there. But Again, it's like I own these games at least 2 or 3 times on computers, Macs, iOS devices. But just in case you need a 10th copy of the original Battlefront games, it looks like they're going to be coming to the Switch on March 14th. So, what else we got here? Oh, Jango Fett comic is coming out. That looks pretty neat. I do like his armor. You know, there was a time I wasn't a huge fan of Jango, but like his son, his clone progeny, he's grown on me a bit too. Maybe if that hot toy gets, if they run like a 40% discount on it, I'll finally get the Jango hot toy. And hey, there's the new Bad Batch poster. All right, so Nick should be getting here anytime soon. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pop over to the Bad Batch post. That's right, people. It's getting close to Bad Batch time. We had the season 3 premiere today. 3 episodes. What the hell was the name of them here? Real quick. I know I'm so prepared here. I'll find it in a second. Okay, so episode 1 was called Confined. Episode 2, Paths Unknown. And episode 3, Shadows of Tantus. And boy, oh boy, was that a pretty damn good episode. But as we wait for Nick, I'll just kind of go and get into my general review of the premiere for Bad Batch Season 3. Now, obviously, if you want a much more long-winded deep dive, just me, you can go check that out on youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show. I posted my unscripted, one-take full breakdown of the 3 episodes that dropped today. So that is, like I said, live now on YouTube. But my quick take here on these 3 episodes is, thank goodness they decided to release all 3 today. And listen, I'm not going to get into this bitch fest like a lot of fans get into, like, oh, filler content, too slow, too stupid. I have a feeling Nick might be coming in and saying that. But I did feel like episodes 1 and 2 were, purposely slow because we're starting to lay down the narrative train tracks for this season. So you kind of had to catch up with the main characters and lay down where they're at, how they're feeling, what they're currently doing, and kind of, what's happening in the galaxy, in particular, what's going on with the Empire. So I understood why episodes 1 and 2 were a bit slow and kind of uneventful. But as a 3-episode drop, I think it was a great way to kick off the season. And that's really thanks to episode 3. Episode 2 is very much like episode 1. It just gave us a different perspective of what's happening. So in episode 1, obviously it was all from the perspective of the clones locked up on Tantus, in particular Omega and Crosshair. I really did enjoy episode 1, the Groundhog Day motif, if you will. I always like that, where, in movies, cartoons, or whatever, you just see a person reliving the same day over and over and over and over, and it's a way to pass time. And while, yeah, it's not a true Groundhog Day where Omega was just waking up to the same day every single day, she essentially was waking up to the same life. And I thought it was a very clever way to show the passage of time for her. When we first meet Omega, she's only been there for maybe a month based on her wall scratches. But just thanks to the sink, if you notice there, the leaky sink, that was kind of the nod to us all that a new day has begun. But I love how they did that, and all of a sudden she's, 150 days plus. Almost, half a year or so, almost half a year she's been locked up now. We got to see her hair grow out a little bit. She's in the ponytail. So I love that part of episode 1. And really, the other thing I enjoyed about episode 1 was the focused conversations between Crosshair and Omega. Because listen, these characters have not spent a lot of time together. In fact, very minimal amounts of time. So And there's such drastic personalities, the differences between them right now. I mean, Crosshair, you got to feel for the dude. I mean, yeah, he made a lot of poor choices, but you can tell he is paying for them dearly. And he kind of wants that. I got the sense that he wants to be punished. He feels like he should be locked up, just like he told Omega, like, hey, don't waste yourself on a lost cause like me. So he is in rough shape. I mean, this dude's been burned. He's tried to get away. He's been captured. He's been experimented on. His hands are all shaky. But I really appreciate the dynamic between these two. It starts off very icy, as any conversation would with Crosshair. But towards the end, things get a little warmer. He's starting to not necessarily buy into her idea of escaping, but, kind of just appeasing her. If you ever had a kid, it's just like, you tell them something like, oh, yeah, you're doing great, even though they're not. You're just like, yeah, keep it up, buddy. You can do it. It was one of those things. So I did like those two together. And as we saw by episode 3, that the bond is much stronger. They're working more like a team, just like Omega was with his brothers when he decided to leave. All right, it sounds like Nick's calling in here for a second, so as he's doing, I'll just kind of wrap my review. Episode 3, fantastic. I mean, Palpatine's arrival already, the Project Necromancer reveal. Nick and I are like, hey, we want a tie to the sequels, to the Mandoverse. We got it right away with the premiere, with Palpatine's visit to Project Necromancer, the Necromancer lab, that is. All right, here he comes, people. Give us a second while we bring in young Nick. I hear him. Here he is. All right. He has made it.
Made it.
Look at that.
This is what happens when you have a job.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Hey. No big deal, buddy. We've been... You'll actually like it. We'll probably have a much shorter show because I've already covered everything but Bad Batch and Fan segments. So you've showed up at the perfect time.
Nice. Yeah, I mean... news-wise, I assume that there's not much, as per usual. Like
Respawn is rumored to be making a first-person Mandalorian game set during the Galactic Empire, and
yeah, that makes sense. That's probably like similar to what was leaked,
right,
months ago.
It's like, we don't know who it is, but whatever.
Yeah.
Mandalorian first-person Respawn sounds like a good formula. And the other thing was just a quote from Brad Rao and Jennifer Corbett on the potential future of Asajj Ventress beyond Bad Batch. And they made it pretty clear without saying it that you're not going to learn everything about her mysterious resurrection in Bad Batch, but there may be something else that kind of dives into the details.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, nothing big. And then I talked about the shitty Madam Webb and the excellent Snoop Dogg, the Underdog movie on Amazon. So that's it.
Nice.
You're all caught up. But
there we go, all caught up.
Nick, you know how we usually do it. We kind of kick off with our personal reviews. I just about finished mine here. I was just talking about how episode 3 was kind of the banger. We had the Palpatine arrival. We got right into Project Necromancer. So you and I got one of our wants kind of checked right away.
Yep.
Omega and Crosshair already off Tantus, which I think is awesome. And I really felt like episode 3 was the exclamation point to the premiere. And without it, it would have felt a bit lackluster if we just ran with episodes 1 and 2.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I feel like episodes 1 and 2 probably could have been combined into one episode. I know that, specifically episode 2 felt like it was a little bit like too focused on living trees. Like, oh my gosh, the Empire, they experimented on these branches and now they just attack people. And I was like, okay, cool, I guess. But yeah, episodes 1 and 2, I mean, like episode 1, a little bit more meat on the bone than episode 2. But I do feel like overall, if you would have split those 15 minutes each, you would have accomplished the goal of both of those episodes in one without having two of them that essentially just didn't tell that much of a story. I know where they're leading with episode 2, like, oh, look, these are these are clones that were abandoned by the Empire. They may help in whatever is to come in the future for the Bad Batch. Like, if there is an assault on Tantus that happens in season 3, then maybe we see those like abandoned
Mox, Deacon Stack, brother.
Yeah, like maybe they help out.
They're going to Pabu, your favorite island.
It's the best place in Star Wars, right? Like Pabu, just everybody loves Pabu.
I love that Pabu got a mention in the premiere as well. I mean, how can you beat it? You get a Pabu drop, Palpatine shows up, and hey, oh yeah, here's Project Necromancer, by the way. Literally, like, here it is. This is it. Look, you can see it now. This is what it is.
Well, yeah. So I am glad that we got as much as we got in it. I do think that, like, I don't remember. I think that our predictions had either Crosshair or Omega, or maybe both of them, lasting a little bit longer in the Tantus facility, but I could be wrong.
No, I mean, we kind of hedged our bet, and we can just make it up because it's not like anyone's going to go look up our stupid show. So I do think we kind of bought in that Crosshair might have got out early based on the trailer and seeing someone in that armor and whatnot. And we also, I remember there was a screenshot of Omega in a pilot seat, and I was like, well, that kind of implies that she's not locked up.
Yeah,
so we nailed it, Nick. Woo-hoo!
Did they get out? Did they not? Come to find out, they did get out. They got out, and
I like that decision. Do you? That they're out this early?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been. You would have, if you didn't let them out this early, you would have essentially had to play every episode that kept them inside of Tantus in 2 parts. You would have had to play, like, here's Tantus, and then here's the batch, and then here's Tantus, and then here's the batch. So to stop from essentially having to tell 2 parallel storylines at the same time, you now can just tell, the story of the reunited batch altogether, and then whatever they plan on doing. It does now change the dynamic of possibly what we had happening towards the end of the show. Like, do we still think that they are going to assault the base? Like, are they going to try to go back to Tantus to essentially do what we said and try to free the clones that were still there?
I think Omega will not let them do anything otherwise.
I'm going to be honest with you. She seemed way more concerned about those dogs than about the clones.
Well, the only reason I say that is because, early on, I think episode 1, when Crosshair is still kind of down the dumps, not hearing it, hey, I'm a lost cause, don't waste your life on me. She pretty much says none of us should be locked up here. And that's where I'm kind of going. If they do happen to link back up with Hunter and Wrecker, which it would make sense, why would they not go and try to find them? But I could see her like, hey guys, there's some nasty shit going on there. That's the other thing I like. By them escaping, and Hemlock teased it, the full force of the Empire is now going to be after those 2 people. So that's where we're going to get the bounty hunters now, mercs, true believers, the mystery clone that showed up in episode 3 there. Just, they purposely like, hey, there's Republic commandos walking in the frame, but we're going to keep the camera focused on that guy in the armor from the trailer. But yeah, I think she's taking them back still. They're not going to let those clones just be lab rats, in my opinion. Or, maybe she does get locked up again, but that'd be kind of stupid, right? If they do capture her.
Like, that's what I'm trying to say is, like, now that they're out, I don't see a route back to Tantus. Like you said, like, they're sending out the full, like, Palpatine essentially told them, whatever you need, you got it. Yeah. And like that, and now he knows that Omega is the key, which of course, I mean, unaltered clone makes sense. So they're going to be going after her, and like they know, well, one, they know that they stole this shuttle. They can track the shuttle probably. And 2, they know that like we need to fight. They're going to reunite with the rest of the Bad Batch. So if we can find the batch, so they're going to use their network of informants, probably Sid, to like see if they can find the batch, but they're sending out everybody to find them. So I'm struggling to see like where the moment is for them to come back. Cause like you said, if they send them out and then they just recapture them and then go back to Tantus, it feels a little weird you know?
Well, I'm with you. Like, I don't think there's going to be a recapture. I do think the return to Tantus is going to be a coordinated clone effort. Like the freed clones, Pabu clones, wherever the hell Rex is stashing these mofos. They're going to hear from Omega and Crosshair what's going down, and that's going to be their last hurrah. Like, hey, we're going to go and we're going to free our bros.
Yeah.
And
so in that instance, it almost seems like they as in the Batch and Omega may not even be involved with the Tantus side of things. Like it would, because if they're actively being pursued by the Empire, unless they somehow shake that, or like whatever happens to where like the Empire is no longer chasing them anymore, like it almost feels like they're going to be off being chased by the Empire, and then the clones that are freed, and then like whoever else rallies to that cause will attack Tantus. So like, I guess that's unless like the Batch's plan is like the best place to be when your enemy is hunting you is in your enemy's base.
I honestly think that's what it's going to end. I think they're going to go up. It's going to be an all-star squad roll into Tantus of clones, and whoever else wants to join in, maybe friends they found along the way. But this is not the last of the clones, our named clones, Clone Force 99, Omega, and Tantus. There's no way. I mean, they made too big of a deal of that location over the first 3 episodes here. So we always got Hemlock to check in on, and of course Nala Se, and some of the other stuff going on at that Project Necromancer, and we're going to get into that. Don't worry, people. But were you reviewing anything, or we just kind of jumped into a talk on?
I mean, I think we just kind of jumped into our thoughts on it. But yeah, I mean, if you want to go through a review.
Yeah, I already kind of laid down my thoughts. So unless I think.
I mean, for me, review wise, episodes 1 and 2 are like mid, like I really do feel like it would have been better if they were combined. Just because I feel like specifically episode 2 was weak. Like I actually because I was pressed for time, I skipped 5 minutes of that episode and fucking nothing happened in the 5 minutes that I skipped. And I was just like, okay, well, get me to something. Like, where are we going with this? Is it just like they find these kids, they escape, and that's essentially what it was. It was a 24-minute episode of them being like, oh, this was Hemlock's thing. It got destroyed. Their clone's still here. Omega's not here. We're leaving.
Yeah, they got sector information out of it, so they have a general clue of where Hemlock is at now.
Yeah, so I do feel like that episode was probably, could have been combined with episode 1. Episode 1 was definitely focused on how the interior has been treating, the interior of Tantus has been treating Omega and Crosshair, where it seems like Omega has been given a little bit more access, a little bit more free range. She's working with Nala Se again, like she used to when they were still on Kamino, which was really cool to see. And really, dived into the, interior of Tantus, aspect of things. I still kind of have a feeling similar to episode 2 where it's like, I don't know if we needed a 25-minute episode on that. I feel like that information could have been communicated in a split episode, and then you had an extra episode for your main story arc. But overall, in terms of episodic ranking, I would say that my favorite so far, it would be 3, 1, 2. I feel like 2 was just weak. But
Wrecker was carrying Gonki on his back.
I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. I may have skipped past that part. The episode was just boring. It just got to a point where
he legitimately has a Gonk droid backpack harness. It's pretty. Yeah. It was very Wrecker, if you will. The other thing I'll say about episode 2, and Bat's been bringing this up. There's a lot of Halo vibes, right? Yeah, it's kind of very flood-like. Those little spore things and the slither vines, and even in episode 1, one of the TKs was TK343. So potentially there's a Halo nut working on the Bad Batch team at this point in time.
It seems like it, which also may have been why I was like, why I feel like it could have been combined, because it almost like it was just like I don't know. It was just too long of an episode for literally like 3 minutes of actual substance behind it.
Sounds like Nick's calling this one a filler episode.
Well, here's my problem is like this is the final season. Like we don't have time for bullshit like that. Like we have very limited time left in this season, in this whole series, and we're taking time to like spend 24 minutes with like characters that we could have spent way less time with, and then put more development into like the main plot line of this series.
Fair.
So I just thought that episode 2 was kind of a dud, and I was just like, I was watching it, and then I realized like 10 minutes in, I was like, I could probably skip and not miss anything. And I did. Like, I skipped through the end of it, and I was like, okay,
you missed the Gonk droid backpack, Nick. Come on, that was the entire episode.
So,
but it had good music. I'll tell you what. Throughout, like Kevin Kiner, I'm not gonna say he's John Williams, but that dude is a hell of a composer for animated Star Wars. And I think we also know he can do the live action shit thanks to his work on Ahsoka. But nepotism or not, the Kiner family is killing it with Star Wars musical scores right now. In particular, in episode 2, I really thought it kind of had some alien vibes to it, maybe a little Predator, kind of that drum stuff, tribal action. All right, fair enough. Let's go ahead and cover some of the top moments then, Nick, starting with episode 1. Like you, I didn't identify a ton of top moments, even though I do feel like these first 3 episodes, to me, gave me some of the lore I've been looking for. Now, that predominantly came in episode 3, but it was teased in episode 1 with the necromancer stuff. But in terms of episode 1, a top moment, I talked about this before you came on, but I really loved the Groundhog Day thing they did with the sink, and how they used that to pass time, and showed that, when we first met with Omega, she'd only been there maybe a month, but then as time passed, it's gone into maybe half a year. I think someone's counted 150 marks up there. So I like that aspect of how they told the story. But in terms of a top moment for episode 1, I really found those to be between Omega and Crosshair. I kind of explained this a bit before you came on, but I really liked their interactions. You can just see how beat down Crosshair is. Like, all of the piss and vinegar has been sucked out of him at this point in time. I mean, so much so that Omega's like, come on, man, we're going to get out. You're my man. No soldiers left behind. He's like, hey, I'm a piece of shit. Piece of shits deserve to be locked up in here and die. So leave me alone. But then that was contrasted with Omega and her usual bubbly, go get 'em, optimistic attitude. And, we saw it grow throughout the episode and then into 3. But we never really got to see these characters interact in deep, meaningful ways. Yeah. And it does seem that Omega is going to be the one that is getting Crosshair to, open up again, maybe potentially even forgive himself at some point in time. But it seems like she is allowing him to redeem himself a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense why Crosshair is in the state that he's in. I mean, he's essentially, he betrayed his brothers to work for the Empire, and then the Empire shit on him and then imprisoned him.
Don't forget, he also got his whole face burnt too.
Yeah, and tortured him. So, like, I mean, at this point, it's no surprise to see Crosshair in the state that he was in prior to their escape. Like, he is completely and utterly broken down, like, by
his balls have been chopped off.
Yeah. So it was interesting to see that juxtaposition of the two characters. One of them, like, so motivated to get out and motivated to reconnect with her family, with the batch, and Crosshair essentially like, look, fucking leave me, like, open up that kennel door and run your ass out. Don't worry about me. So that was a really cool play off of those two characters, and it was really interesting to get to see Omega really interact with Crosshair in a meaningful way for the first time in the series. I mean, Crosshair was always the one to say, like, just get rid of this girl. Like, we don't need to
kid, be, idiot.
Like all of that stuff. And to see that she is the one that essentially saved him, and not only the one that saved him to get out of the fucking facility, but also the one to save him because they couldn't shoot them down because of her. Like, if it wasn't because of Omega, correct, they would both be dead. So
yeah, I really like this decision they made here to pair these two up early on. I mean, it seems like they're going to be and we see this in movies and TV shows, there's usually 2 to 3 main narrative threads that you follow with characters. And it's seeming so far in Bad Batch Season 3, our one thread is going to be Wrecker and Hunter. They're going to expose us to stuff on the outside, the Rexes, the Echoes, stuff like that. The Moxes, the Deeks, and Stacks. There's going to be the Tantus narrative, mainly driven through Hemlock, Nala Se, and Emery. And now there's going to be what seems like the Crosshair and Omega narrative. And I don't know about you, Nick, but I kind of want these two to be on their own for a bit and not immediately link back up with Hunter and Wrecker.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the very least they're going to have to make a pit stop in the next episode for like either repairs,
like you said,
to
ditch the ship.
Yeah, like you got to get rid of that ship. Like if they don't repair it and then try to, fuck with the homing beacon, then they have to ditch it and then get another mode of transportation. I know that their first plan obviously was to get to that shuttle and then just send a message to the batch as soon as they got there. Obviously that didn't work out. The comms weren't working. So it may still be the plan to like, hey, get to the next planet that we can where we, hopefully aren't found easily, send out a message to the batch and then see if we can coordinate some sort of, search or like some sort of rescue op for the batch to pick up Crosshair and Omega.
How sweet would it have been if they actually stole Palpatine's ride? Like, how great! Yeah, I was hoping it was going to happen. I was like, how would these two pull this off? But it would be amazing. I mean, Palpatine would have to nuke the entire base if that happened.
Yeah, I know. Like right now, they can still kind of like keep it under the radar. Like, don't fucking tell them that these people just escaped. Just don't tell them. Like,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is like, I mean, he clearly must not know that Omega's the key, but Hemlock's going to have to tell her, and he's going to be like, idiot, you had her, and now you let my prize go. And,
dude,
and we know how Palpatine handles that type of disappointment.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is Hemlock is definitely not going to tell him. Hemlock's like, all that Palpatine knows now is like, hey, we've made some progress. We're moving in a good direction. Hemlock's going to be like, don't tell him about this little hiccup that we've had here, because if we do, then I am dead. So, but I do think that that Palpatine is probably not going to be told that this person escaped or that she is the key. Because if he does find that out, but then Hemlock is in such big shit.
You got to wonder, though. I mean, I wonder if Palpatine, obviously he's a genius. He has a temper, we know that. But one would think if Hemlock's like, hey, bro, we finally figured out the key here, but it escaped. Obviously, Sheev's going to be pissed, but he also needs Hemlock. So I don't know if he could just nuke him quite yet.
Yeah.
And like Hemlock, he's kind of like, yeah, fuck it. I've got the whole Empire at my disposal. We'll get him. He wasn't even worried about Palpatine's reaction. So who knows? Maybe he's got a better plan than we're kind of speculating here. But one would think Palpatine would learn about that immediately, considering his ship just fucking pulled off as they were escaping. Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I mean, honestly, dude, we could run right into that trailer scene where we see Hunter and Wrecker seemingly have already rescued Crosshair and they're trying to get away from TK's. And I'm wondering if Omega was just hidden in the trailer edit, or if when they do have this rendezvous, if you will, that shit gets fucked up and they only can save Crosshair, and then Omega is immediately captured again.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense in terms of like why we have to go back to Tantus if she is recaptured relatively quickly. that would lead us on that path back there. But if she, like you said, it could have been really clever editing. Just make sure that she's not in the scenes. I mean, like that definitely makes sense. But yeah, like that's where I think it would still be weird if it was like, okay, well, you got away for an episode and then we recaptured you and then you're going all the way back to Tantus, so that like draws them back. I mean, you could definitely do that, and it would definitely set up like a lot of the things that we talked about in our predictions and what we expected for this season, like a full-on assault on Tantus, a breakout mission, not only for Omega and Crosshair, but for the clones that were there as well. That would definitely open that possibility up if Omega was back there. But it would be odd if it was like, all right, we put all this effort into episode 3 to like have them escape, and then in episode 5, midway through, she's recaptured. It's like, well, that seems weird, but okay.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how they handle it. Hemlock was able to track them down and find her without the full backing of the Emperor. So with the backing of the Emperor, I guess you could argue like, oh yeah, it's going to be fairly easy. And that's why it's only going to be maybe an episode or 2. But I think either way, if she stays, I'll be okay. If she gets immediately captured, but Crosshair doesn't, I'd be okay as well. If they both got captured, that'd just be absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because why would you even try to save Crosshair at this point in time? Just nuke him and knock out Omega and take her back and drain her of her blood.
Yeah.
Because clearly they need that.
Because here's the issue that we're running into now. It's like we know from the sequel trilogy that whatever was happening with like the cloning program was at least relatively successful, right? Because like Snoke is created, Snoke has force powers, like so there had to be some win somewhere. Like the Empire got a hold of somebody's blood, whether it's Omega's or whether it's somebody else's that they eventually find down the road, where they could enact at least some part of this Project Necromancer.
I think you're right, because they're still in Project Necromancer during the Mandoverse, so they have not fully figured it out. That's for sure. That's canon now. That happened in the Mandalorian season 3 when the Shadow Council was talking about it. So we know at least almost 20 years later the project's still going. But I think you could be onto something to where over these decades of time that have passed, they've gotten better at the host body, the strand cast being able to handle the same amount of M count that the specimen sample had during the transfer. Because that's where we're at. I guess I didn't want to quite talk about it yet, but people need educated on Project Necromancer, as I've found out reading some Reddit threads. But I mean, Bat's bringing up Gideon was doing some cloning. It looks like he might have figured out some shit too. So he could have had Hemlock's notes or Nala Se's notes. But they definitely didn't perfect it, because that's why Palpatine was in a rotting clone body. The clone body could not handle his M counts. As we are learning, these clone bodies, these strand casts, if you will, they were, you could shoot midichlorian jizz into them, but it would degrade. It would not be like if you're taking it from Yoda and you shot it into Cody, it would not be Yoda level M count. That M count would severely drop and eventually start, it sounded like, affecting the host body, like deteriorating the body.
It would deteriorate.
So you're right. So, like they clearly have gotten better, because they produced a being. I mean, he looked fucked up. Like you could chalk that up to, Project Necromancer was never perfected because of the Bad Batch. But you are right. They do eventually get to the point where you have a strand cast with force abilities. So real quickly, for you people sitting there saying, ooh, Hemlock is Snoke. No. Snoke is already defined as a strand cast clone. Like, he is a clone. Strand cast straight up. Like, it is what it is. But it makes sense, because they didn't know what they were doing. Probably because they never got, as we're going to find out, Omega's unaltered blood in Project Necromancer. I mean, they got to the point, Nick, you're right, where they could he could get his essence over there and transfer his M count, but that body could never handle it, and he was losing power by over the decades to the point where, when we meet him in The Rise of Skywalker, the dude is in a Star Wars quadriplegic wheelchair, essentially. I mean, he's a fucking puppet. He can't move. I mean, he's being whipped around on a big crane arm because his body is so broke.
It is, so we have to see, like, there's a lot of gaps to fill, and obviously this season of The Bad Batch is not going to fill all of the gaps between now and Tross, and now and like even now in the Mandoverse, probably. Like, this is just kind of setting the scene for this initiative, what's going on, and like potentially we can see how far they get until their plans are disrupted at Tantus and then have to move off site, because we know that also happens. Like, we know that Tantus is not the ultimate site of where the large majority of this cloning research happens, because we know that we're pretty confident that at the end of this season, it's either going to be destroyed or the Empire is going to evacuate Tantus, and they're going to have to move their cloning research into
Delta
different
Zero,
areas.
buddy. Base Delta Zero, orbital bombardment.
So, that could be what is happening here with Tantus, just like what happened with Hemlock's old fucking
exactly,
lab,
man.
And
we predicted this, and I still think it's going to hold true, because after Empire Strikes Back, motherfucker has Exegol fully functioning. Like, all the Star Destroyers are laying in wait. He's got clone tubes, Luke's hand, freaky bodies that try to take out Robo Vader. So, yeah, I mean, it's inevitable that Mount Tantus on Wayland is toast. And I do think Bad Batch, Clone Force 99, Omega, they're going to be the ones responsible for that.
Yeah.
All right. I like this. We're just kind of all over, but it's working. Sticking with top moments, kind of moving into Nick's favorite episode 2.
Episode 2. Here we go, baby.
You know what? This might have been when you were kind of fast forwarding, but I did, at least from an action perspective and a visual perspective, I did like the Slither Vine fight and then the rescue. All right.
Okay.
I mean, the thing reminded me of, what was it? The Creature in the Water, whatever, from the Mines of Moria.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, it gave me, it was a mix between that and a Sarlacc.
Yeah.
Because the Sarlacc, like, the creature that you see in Lord of the Rings, like, comes out of the water at one point, and like you see more of a full circular body form. But like, this almost like rose out like a Sarlacc mouth, and then like all of the tentacles were coming up. So like, my first thing was like, this is like a water Sarlacc.
Yeah. But hey, it's an Imperial water Sarlacc. Imperial water. Yes. Like I said, it was fun Star Wars action, clone action at that. It was at night, so Nick, we got our pretty lights that we like to see. Like Bat said, it's actually the Flood. Like, sure, why not? I mean, they're all our favorite sci-fi universes. They're all the same. Alien, Predator, Halo, all in the same galaxy. Why not? But there was also some in-universe tropes I appreciated. I did like that the young clones did the right thing in the end. I think that was I always like when, heroic rescues, when people make the right choice. Mox eventually is like, you know what, that'd be fucked up. We're going to leave our brother and these guys here after we were left by all of our clone brothers. So they show up, and then, the kicker here, obviously Wrecker being involved, but the dropping all the bombs in it, and then him at the end going like, oh, I was like, yes. Anytime Wrecker's dumbass gets excited, my dumbass gets excited. So I did like this scene, and then kind of the follow up on the ship. But the other one, Nick, mostly because of the voice cameo, I love that they brought back Daniel Logan to voice Mox.
Yeah, kind
of like the main guy. And then the other two, believe it or not, like they gave Daniel a specific character. Stack and Deke were voiced by that Julian Dennison kid. He was the Fire Hands in Deadpool 2 or whatever.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
But I believe he's a New Zealander, so he already has that built-in Maori Tamara Morrison accent, so it worked out perfectly. But it was a nice. It's always nice when former Star Wars actors can kind of come back and play in the universe. So for a fan moment, I had to highlight that one. But now, moving into the true top moments of the Bad Batch season 3 premiere, those all came from episode 3. Like, it wasn't even close, people. I'm not as down on 2 as Nick. His points are very valid, but episode 3 was the star. Episode 3 is what made me go, fuck yeah, I like this. I like where things are headed. I kind of like where all these irons are at in the fire right now. But in terms of a top moment, I mean, how can you not talk about the arrival of Palpatine? It was beautiful. It was everything we wanted. It was, a slightly smaller scale version of what we got in Return of the Jedi. But he's just, I love this character. I love him. I don't love him as much as Darth Vader, but he's high up there on the list. And, his arrival only got better the moment you heard Ian speak. It's just, man, it's Pavlovian at this point in time with that guy's voice and this character. When you hear that, I love it. I love this guy. So Palpatine's arrival was perfect. Loved it.
Aces.
I love that they stuck with it all the way up until the lab.
Yeah. I mean, it was such a perfect way to introduce Palpatine into the show. We knew that he was going to play a huge part in, or at least a significant part in Bad Batch because of everything that is happening here. Project Necromancer, the cloning initiatives, and all of the stuff that's going on at Tantus are his baby. Like that, like he was telling Hemlock, this is essential to the success of this empire that this is done. The highest priority.
Did you pick up on him saying, yo, bro, most people in the empire would think what you're doing is an abomination. So this is like super low key. I would say there's 100% chance Vader doesn't even know this place exists at this point.
100%. And that's why, towards the end, or when we were doing our speculations and stuff last week, we obviously would love to see Vader show up if there is an assault on Tantus, but this isn't Vader's thing. Vader is out in the field. He is hunting down Jedi who survived Order 66. He is, putting communities under oppression. He's doing all of the boots on the ground stuff, where Palpatine is clearly the one who is and has been orchestrating his backup plan since the day the Empire started.
Yeah, I was going to say, bro, it's pretty much first thing on his agenda after declaring himself emperor was, okay, how can I become immortal?
Yeah, and it makes sense. If we're going to fill in these gaps between what we know happens in the sequel trilogy and where we are in current Star Wars, having a scene like this or just having an episode like this where Palpatine lays it out on Front Street, just right up as soon as it started, hey, this is my top priority, and we're only, like you said, 5 months into the Empire being in existence, maybe a year.
Yeah,
we're not
this
that
point
far
might be
into it.
2 years, 2, 3. I'd say 3 at the most, and that's pushing it.
So we're still really early in Imperial timeline, and he's already hey, where do I need to be 30 years from now, just in case something goes bad?
Yeah, and that's what he's doing. Real quick here from Ben Ryan, the stream, was Palpatine actually a clone in Truss? I wasn't clear on that, to be honest. Yeah, when I first watched it, I was like, nah, that's just his rotting corpse. But if you think about it, the dude fell down a reactor and his body exploded.
Yeah.
He somehow transferred his essence across a galaxy somehow.
Yeah,
into a clone vessel, but because, like we said, because his essence was so loaded with M count, and they clearly never figured out Necromancer 100%. Because of the M count was so high, it was just eating the clone body literally from the inside out, while also slowly degrading his power. And
also, he's puppeting Snoke the whole time that Snoke's alive. So he's essentially living in his own body,
right?
And then he's almost using, from what I understand, again, this could be wrong, but from what I understand, he's also in some sort of control over Snoke as an entity while he's alive, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, Snoke was a Strandcast clone. He wasn't like a failed Palpatine clone like Rey's dad, but he was a puppet.
Yeah.
So where was he cloned from? Is it like a very early on Palpatine attempt? It doesn't sound like it. They just call him a Strandcast.
Yeah, and like what I'm confused. Like, okay, so clearly in this scene, like in the scene where they go into the lab, they go through all the ray shields, they go into the lab. Palpatine shows, or Hemlock shows him a body.
Yeah, so let's get into this then, because Project Necromancer, or the Necromancer room, lab, whatever you call it, was my next top moment. And Nick, I'm 99% sure in those cylinders are the bodies of Jedis. Okay, I believe they're either in stasis, frozen, because it doesn't sound like they can be dead and still extract what they need. But those aren't clones. I mean, those are referred to as specimens. It's very clear that they're locked behind 85 ray shields. These aren't just clones being experimented on. These are more than likely fallen Jedi that Vader has delivered through the Inquisitorius, the Inquisitors themselves. Maybe Jedi that fell at Order 66 were collected and brought here. But what do you think, man? I don't think there's any other choice, but those are Jedi bodies in stasis in that lab.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the idea here is like, okay, we need a body that has had the Force.
Correct.
Before.
That's what this stuff is. This is. And clearly, we know they lose this because what are they trying to track down the Mandoverse era? Grogu for a sample, right? I'm with you 100%. This is essentially their Jedi Force blood sample room.
Yeah. So they're using this, the high midichlorian level blood, or blood,
correct, from
these Jedi,
correct,
and they're testing that versus the clone bodies to see, like, okay, where can we find a match? Can we find a combination that does not result in reduced M count?
Correct.
In terms of the new host body. So I think you're right. I think that is Jedi. And then obviously they've been going through all of these clones and testing them to see, like, can we mix this clone body blood with this high midichlorian count blood and not have a degradation
100%
in M count?
Good. You passed the media literacy test. Thank you. Because I was reading some theories. They're like, oh, this proves it. Omega, she's got the Force. I'm like, no, you fucking dopes. Like, this was set up in season 1. The reason Omega is so important is because she is the last sample of an unaltered Jango Fett.
Exactly.
And if you remember from season 1, Lama Su, when he was trying to be like, hey, we can keep cloning for you guys, Empire. You want us, right? We're awesome. Keep paying us. We like the money. But he was, in Nala Se kind of nudged him like, hey, dude, we're kind of out of the material we need to make high level functioning clones like we did, and the only one that has that DNA left, she escaped with the Bad Batch. So Lama Su, not the Empire, initially sent bounty hunters to get Omega for that exact reason, because as Nick said, this unaltered clone blood that Omega has is the key. And the reason there is no one else they can focus on, because the Kaminoans are dead. That cloning science died with them. They were the ones that perfected cloning in the galaxy until the Empire genocided their asses. So Omega is the only remaining sample of their brilliant creation from the clone army. And because it's unaltered, it apparently, Nick, has the ability to accept midichlorians perfectly.
Yeah. And it's, there were a lot of things that happened to the clones, like the altered clones in their like DNA structure, that did cause them to, one, age faster, and two, degrade quicker.
Correct.
So like it makes sense that like even clones like, like Rex and all of the name clones that we know from the TV series, they're all altered. Like none of them are unaltered clones, so all of them would have the same failure points
Correct.
as the tests that they're doing in Tantus. The only ones that would be able to essentially be able to have, you know, midichlorian essence transferred into their body without degradation of the M count would be Omega and Boba Fett. Like those are the only two, because those are the only two unaltered clones that were ever produced from Camino. See, so if there's an angle to bring Boba Fett back in, baby, you found it. He's
yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, clone. Dude, that introduces a narrative problem now, because I mean, how could the Empire not know about Boba Fett?
Yeah, they literally fucking okayed his creation. That was his pay. That was Jango Fett's payment.
Yeah,
like
so. You're right. I like that. Maybe, you know, maybe they find that out, or somehow they remember, like, oh yeah, there's another one out there. Because it's like, well, why not go after two instead of putting all of your eggs into one basket? I would like that. I would. You know, we're calling for it. It makes sense. I mean, Boba Fett kind of has to show up. Why do you have Tech? I forget, it was season 1 at the end. Why do you have him specifically say, "Ooh, the Alpha"? Like you don't do that shit just for fun. So you may be onto something. They could finally figure it out. Like, oh wait, there is another one out there, and
it's just like
he's locked up in a prison right now.
It causes so many problems, though. Like the Boba Fett angle of this, if they actually do follow up on that, because one, if nobody else knows, like if for some reason none of these other Imperial officers know that there's another unaltered clone out there, Nala Se knows. Like,
honey, of course she knows.
Like she knows, but obviously she's, you know, actively working against them, so she's not going to give that information up willingly. And two, if they do follow that storyline and they're like, okay, well, we got to go try to track down Boba Fett too, because we need a plan B in case we can't get Omega, and they do chase that down, like why would Boba Fett ever fucking work for them again? Like why would he just be like, oh yeah, you want me to come onto the Star Destroyer so you can tell me to hunt down?
It's like
Han Solo.
They almost just have to turn a blind eye to the Boba Fett thing, I think. Like it just, you are right. It'd be weird to introduce it to where, hey, Boba Fett could literally give our Emperor what he wants, but now we're just going to keep using him as a low-level bounty hunter to track down Han Solo in trash dumps.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's just like some selective storytelling that has to be told around Boba Fett
it's
now.
Star Wars, of course. There's I mean, most of the Star Wars narrative is selective because it's all been told out of order. You know, I mean that's why we're talking about Project Necromancer, something that was initially kicked off in The Rise of Skywalker. Like this is where we're at. But anyways. It does sound like you figured out the Necromancer, and that makes me happy. I wasn't worried, but you never know. Like some people, I don't know what they watch. It's like, that's it, Omega's going to be like Rey's mom. And it's like, no, that's already established. Like her name's Miriam or something. And her dad, Dathan, was a shitty strand cast because Omega's blood was never fully secured so they could perfect the process. And that's where we're at. It's great. Project Necromancer has been fully realized and explained at this point in time. And a lorehound like myself, I'm happy. Now we just need to see kind of the last part of it, and that's Tantus getting blown up. So we know now why the Empire could never, ever perfect it, even though they had Omega literally 2 steps away from the blood vials to kick things off. Speaking of blood vials, man, and it kind of plays into my last top moment here, but the escape of Omega and Crosshair. But I fucking loved how they used that vial motif, the centrifuge, to add the tension, to just ramp it up. Like every time it'd be like beep, you're like, oh shit, it's getting closer and closer and closer to Omega's vial, and when that hits, all hell is going to break loose. I really like that choice to use that lab equipment to add to the anxiety of the episode. But like I said, to kind of round out the top moment here of episode 3, I really enjoyed their escape. Like I said, it built upon their relationship. Clearly, they're working together much better now. And surprisingly, Omega is the squad leader, and Crosshair is allowing that and embracing it. I mean, so much so when they get outside and she's like, "I'm sorry, man. I really thought this would work out." He's like, "Dude, you got us this far. Like, let's go. We're not going to quit now. Plan 72." You got to like when they break out random Clone Force 99 plans as well. I like the escape. I like their dynamic working together. And then obviously seeing the two of them execute a Clone Force 99 plan was also a thing of beauty. I mean, it was like very precise in how they went about that mission, with Omega first taking control of the ship, clearing the ground, then Crosshair getting up there so she could drop back down and fight and get the little Batcher dog up there. It was a fun little action sequence.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. It just shows too that, like, even though those two had never really, collaborated, worked together in a significant way before he, kind of broke off and betrayed the batch, like, they still fall into a rhythm. They like it was like, this, all right, cool. Plan 72, let's go. And they both they were able to execute it together very easily. And yeah, I mean, it just goes to show how close knit this Bad Batch is, just purely based off of, like what, the effort that Tech put in, like Omega said, like Tech made sure that I knew all of them. So, it just goes to show how close knit of a group that
Our
was.
only Tech mentioned, by the way.
Yes, yeah. So far, the only Tech mentioned, which was a bit surprising. I was expecting to see.
Wrecker kind of hinted at it when he's like, "Hey, Hunter, should we really go on this mission without backup? You know what happened the last time? We all didn't make it out." So I mean, you kind of had that, but Crosshair and Omega specifically reference the guy, and there's another thing we'll talk about with Tech that popped up in the episode here. All right, let's go through some of the eggs and references. Eggs I'm going to use extremely loosely because there wasn't many at all. In fact, there was really only one egg, and it's so recent it's hard to even call it an egg, but we'll still go through it. You've heard us talking about it, but I'm embracing the new way to say midichlorians. M count. I loved it. As soon as I saw that pop up on the closed caption, I was like, "Oh yeah, they're talking about midichlorians." It's so clear. So we got the M count, a clear reference to midichlorians. You heard Nick talk about them earlier. They went through them multiple times, but we had those Naboo-style ray shields protecting the Necromancer lab. Even got the same sounds as we heard from when Obi-Wan Kenobi was trying to avenge his fallen master at the hands of Darth Maul. And I just talked about the little beast. Got to find my screen. But you got to appreciate that Omega found a new friend and named her Batcher, right? Batcher. Bad Batch. Batcher the dog. Makes complete sense. And
just one quick thing.
Go ahead.
If that dog died, I would have lost it. Like,
that's I know you're a big dog guy, so
I would have lost it. And then like when they let them all out, I was like, oh no, are they gonna have to kill these dogs? But they didn't.
Yeah,
so I was like, you know what? Kill as many fucking humans as you want to. Don't fuck with the dogs. Yeah,
leave the Lurka-hounds safe, even though they're kind of creepy. The other one I wanted to bring up, for some reason I can't find the screen, not that it matters since we are mostly a podcast, but the other little reference there, Omega built herself a Tuca doll, just like Wrecker's Lula that he gave her. And of course they made sure to focus on Lula and the empty hovel that Omega used to fill in the Marauder in episode 2 there.
Yeah.
So
and what I will say on that note, while we touched on this, is I like how they used that as a tool to show that Emery is had softened towards Omega.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought Emery up, because I was kind of starting to hate her a little bit. Like I can't figure out her angle. It's almost like she has her own Order 88 or something going on, where she just cannot she cannot go against Hemlock. Like, she can't go against whatever mission was given to her as a doctor. But like you are saying, you're spot on. I loved how initially they shook Omega down, no personal items, bullshit. And then, after she got yelled at for letting the dog out and Hemlock was like, now we need to start taking some of her rights away, Emery came in at night and was like, here you go, like kind of a peace offering. So yeah, Emery, she may end up being the biggest mystery of this season beyond the Asajj Ventress, because they're doing a great job, Nick, at disguising her true intentions. Like she feels like she's 100%. Yep, I'll do whatever you fucking tell me to achieve this goal of Project Necromancer. Yeah,
and I think that like this first little seed that was planted with like her bringing the doll in and everything like that, I think that'll be like, hopefully that turns into like a progression over the season where it's like, okay, like she's really starting, like Emery is really starting to like act on her own now. And like, she's really starting to see that like, maybe there's a different way that I can go about my life that's not just,
okay, so you think it's going to be a learning change and not she has some long game plan? Because I can't figure it out either.
Yeah, it almost seems like it is more of a slow realization, not necessarily
kind of like Crosshair.
Kind of like Crosshair, not necessarily like a learning process, but almost like a slow realization that there is something else out there for her. Like she is a clone just like Omega was, and like she sees that, like, well, one, she sees like the value in what Omega is. So she sees, like the relationship that could be built between her and Omega, and that's why she's starting to soften a little bit there. But I think she also sees that like she may start to see the way of like, okay, I'm experimenting on my own people. Like all of the things that I'm doing now are not only affecting them, they're going to affect me. Like, you
think that'd resonate by now after she, stabbing Crosshair in the neck with prods and whatnot last season. I can't. And I think that's why I love the character. It's just like, she's so blindly doing horrific things and knows they're pretty horrific. Yet she can't help herself. Like, I mean, she didn't have to tell Hemlock that Omega is the answer. She didn't have to, but she ran to, like, hey, look. I don't know if that was her, like, oh, I know I can save her from getting shot down, so I'll kind of expose this. It's just, I don't know. I'm digging the character. I'm still think there's going to be a shocking 180 with Emery before the season ends. Like she's not gonna just stick to this path of darkness and evil.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there that there's a path to righteousness for Emery if she chooses to take it, for sure. I do think that there can be redemption, even if it is like redemption in death or redemption in something, something other than just like a full switch to the light side, working for the rebellion now. Because I think like a lot of the times where we're like, oh yeah, they're gonna like switch over and work for the rebellion, like when people come out of situations like this where they're like forced into service by another, like, by the Nazis or something like that, their plan is not to be like, I'm gonna get out of here and then I'm gonna go work for the good guys. Like their plan is, I just want to live my life. Like, I don't want to work for somebody else. That's why, like, if clones come out of this show alive, they're not going to go work for the rebellion. They're going to want to just like live a life that is not war all the time. So I am interested to see what her arc is, because I do think that it would make sense for her to be the one to really bring Tantus down from the inside. Yes. Either her or Nala Se, but Nala Se is already like, they're like, put her in the fucking cell. Like they've already tracked her down. So
yeah, I don't know, because I think it was in, I don't know, maybe episode 1 or 3, but she's talking to Omega and Omega's like, how come I never saw you on Camino? And she's like, well, I was somewhere else. And I believe she said she's almost always been with Hemlock. And it almost sounded like she reveres him as I don't want to say a savior, but very like a mentor, someone that has aided her, someone that has enhanced her life, almost like she owes him something.
And I think that like one thing that we haven't talked about too much with Emery is like, well, why is she doing this? Why? But like she is wearing one of those devices around her head that that is probably a control device.
The only reason I thought that too, Nick, but I'm pretty sure last season we saw other non-clone scientists wearing the same deal. So and it's almost like they're lab goggles, but like you're saying, maybe there is something controlling in there.
Yeah, I mean, like I look at that and I see the same thing that like, or a similar device that was put on Echo. Like we obviously know that Lobot had a very similar device that was on his head in ESB, and that gave Lando more or less direct control over Lobot. So I wonder if there is some mechanism of control that is built into that little little headband.
She could very well have a chip too, and Hemlock's been tweaking the shit out of that mofo. But I don't know. Like I said, I dig her. Can't wait to see what the twist is with this one, because there's no way she's just staying as this yes sir, yes ma'am type for Hemlock and the Empire. Just no way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, what else we got here? So moving into episode 2, to kick things off, we get some callbacks to season 1 when we see Roland Durand. If you remember, he actually got that horn chopped off thanks to the Bad Batch and some bad deals with the Pikes. So that was a nice callback. But we finally got to meet his mom, who was mentioned in season 1 of Bad Batch, but more importantly, she was voiced by Angelica Houston. When I was hearing her, I was like, I know I've heard this voice before. And sure enough, it was someone familiar in Angelica Houston.
Morticia Adams.
There you go.
For those of you who don't know.
She, for you younger people, she was quite the looker in her time. She's, an older lady now, but Nick, that's probably your best bet to go to for some Angelica Houston is right to the Addams Family movies from the 90s.
Yeah.
What else we had here? Oh, speaking of our buddy, where is it? But we were kind of talking about how Tech he was kind of left out there, not really mentioned much. But if you looked closely when Hunter was kind of playing around with a gadget at his workstation, up there on the side are Tech's smashed goggles. So
goggles,
please stay dead, my friend. Rest in power. Do not be resurrected. So we got Tech's glasses. Our buddy Wrecker gave us a rancid Joe Taz line. And Joe Taz, Nick, were actually these big blue-looking ogre beasts from Jedi Fallen Order. I believe they were enemy types on Zepho.
Okay, yeah.
Nice I think reference there. The young clones dropped a base Delta Zero call sign, which is actually was mentioned in Rebels and in my reading today. Apparently, it's also in Legends. But what base Delta Zero actually means in the Empire is we're going to glass the planet.
Yeah, we're going to explode it.
All life gone. So I kind of dug that. We already talked about Mox being voiced by Daniel Logan, a.k.a. young Boba Fett, a.k.a. holding my dad's helmet with no head in it guy. So we don't need to go through that. And really the last kind of egg reference thing, and we've hammered it, like we nailed it. We told you exactly what you need to know, but Project Necromancer. We got the reference. We got to see what it is. We got to see the lab. It's quite clear now what we're doing, even though Nick and I told you what Project Necromancer was about this time last year when it was first announced in The Mandalorian. I know some of you wanted to take it this way and that, when if you just break it down, Necromancer, essentially dark spirit being resurrected. Yeah, I mean, it just made too much sense, but it's cool that we have like some concrete lore around it now. We've got Jedi literally locked up in stasis tubes that are being used as specimens to inject into clone casts, clone bodies. And yes, they're using all the old clones just to see if their genetic makeup can jive, and clearly it cannot. So maybe you shouldn't have blown up the Kaminoans, or maybe you should have just, since you're an empire that steals everything, just pay the man, right? If they would have just paid Lama Su and gave him the resources for more clones, it's done.
Yeah.
It's over. I mean,
you would have 5,000 Palpatines. You could have as many as you want.
He wouldn't even need to clone himself. If you just had clone stormtroopers, they would kick the shit out of the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah.
Look what you had. Omega loosely trained by her brothers on the run, and Crosshair, a dude that has Parkinson's disease now. They escaped Tantus.
Yeah.
And took out like a small garrison en route. 2 of them.
Yeah, two. That's it. Yeah, I mean, they definitely fucked up by destroying
just
that
being
clone.
cheap. No, it's all over money, man. Like Tarkin's like, I don't want to pay. It's unbelievable. It's like the Empire. Palpatine, come on, bro. What were you letting these people do? You are the Emperor of the galaxy.
And you like, he controls the flow of money.
No,
like,
that's what I mean, dude. Like, what are you even talking about?
Like, what do you mean you can't spend money? You have all of the money.
I am the Emperor. Do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
thank you. But hey,
what can you do?
I guess every organization has to deal with a budget at some point in time. It's just odd that the Empire would make that choice. Hey, let's get a bunch of dopey conscripts instead of Mandalorian clone warriors that are bred in a fucking tube to kill.
Yeah. You know what I just realized too is like there's way too much of a connection now between Palpatine and Sauron that like Sauron gets killed.
They're the same character at this point, Nick.
Yeah, at this point they are. Like literally the same thing. Like Sauron gets killed at the end of Second Age.
That's Return of the Jedi. So Return of the Jedi is the big fight at the end of the Second Age where all the elves and men got together and took him out.
The final battle. So he gets killed. His essence floats. He doesn't die. His essence is still around. His essence reforms itself as what? The Necromancer at Dol Guldur. And then after he is banished from Dol Guldur, he goes off to Mordor, and that's where the Eye is reborn. Obviously, he's not an Eye in the books. I know that. But like in movie world, he becomes the Eye. So it's the same fucking thing that happens to Palpatine. Yeah. Palpatine's at like, oh my God, it's so weird. Project Necromancer. Sauron is the Necromancer in Dol Guldur.
George borrows from the greats, although I think a lot of this isn't necessarily George's story. So.
Yeah, so this is Simon Kinberg and whoever else, all of the people who are working on the TV show, and then obviously the people, JJ and Chris Terrio who worked on Tross, like that.
Bat has a comment here. He's right. The Empire, they are so cheap they hired contractors to build Death Star. So
that is true.
I mean, it's like, come on. They use Geonosian slaves essentially to get it going, and prisoners. They really are. It's just the Empire failed because they're cheap fucks.
They're cheapskates, dude. Like they literally, even like going back to the Thrawn stuff where it was like, well, we can't build the cool TIE fighters and the Death Star. We can only pick one. It's like, what do you mean you can't do both of them?
Oh, Darth Vader hasn't ransacked enough planets this month, so we didn't meet budget. We got to make a few cutbacks.
Yeah, when you look at all of this stuff, it's like, man, if they just would have just done both, or weren't
it is
such
kind of weird.
I
know we're getting a little too real life with science fiction, but you have to wonder. I mean, the Empire would go to planets and rape the entire planet. Rape it.
Literally strip mine it.
Rape
for
the
all
people,
of its resources.
Rape the resources, everything. I mean, look at the start of Andor. That fucking planet is a wasteland because the Empire gutted it for the resources.
Yeah.
But no, we need to maintain a balanced budget. It's like, what the fuck?
It's like, look, we're an empire here. We're not trying to fuck up the economy for everybody. Like we're just trying to take control of all the planets.
Sheev's like the Fed, man. He's like, hey, we got to raise interest rates again so we can avoid a recession, even though we steal everything.
Yeah, it just the economic angle of this, when you look at it from that lens, just doesn't seem to make any sense.
Man.
But you know what? It's okay.
Maybe he should have kept the banking clan intact instead of taking them out on Mustafar, because I think he needed someone to just let him know, hey, Sheev, by the way, you own the galaxy. So
yeah,
just you need more money, just go rob another planet. Like, what are we talking about?
Just print more credits.
Oh, shit. That was a good one, Nick. All right. I got a few ha's I got to get through, but I think we answered most of them. Nalase almost says, but we got it. Jedi in the lockdown room. Yes. Okay. Here's one. Why do you think Scorch is the only motherfucker allowed to still have armor markings?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like, what's that all about? Is that just fan service?
Probably. Okay. Probably. I mean, because if you look at all of
he's the only one. Every Republic commando, they're all in their clean whites. I don't know if it's because he's Hemlock's personal commando, but for some reason, Scorch is able to keep his gray and yellow. Oh, well, I wanted to see what you thought about that. Omega's blood.
Reason-wise, there's really no reason. I don't know why.
Dumb. And we talked about Hemlock being the base for Snoke, and that's just no way. I mean, listen, I get it. He looks like Andy Serkis and all this fun stuff, but Andy Serkis wasn't used to model Snoke's fucking head. He was a voice, all right?
Yeah, and I also don't see, regardless of what you say, Snoke was big and Hemlock is not. Snoke was 7 feet tall.
Thank you. That's why I love having you here. It's because I know I never have to worry about you coming on the show and saying really stupid shit. Like, hey, Omega's Rey's mom. It's like, no. Like, what are we talking about? All right.
And look, I don't know. It's just I guess it's a lot of the shit that, if you're not really paying attention, or if you're not engrossed in this stuff, it is really hard to be confused by everything that's going on here. But
Nick, I'm talking about people that spend their time on Reddit Star Wars forums. Those are people that may even be beyond you and me. So they're diehards. They're even more diehard than me. I'm fucking diehard. I eat, sleep, breathe shit Star Wars. But you're never going to catch me posting on Star Wars forums.
Yeah, no, that's a
so these are engaged fans, and they're just what the fuck are you guys watching, man?
They should know, or maybe they're watching too many Star Wars theory Mike Zero videos that their brain doesn't work anymore. I don't know.
Oh man,
who knows?
Funny stuff. But hey, there you go. That's our SWTS patented breakdown, full breakdown that is, of a Star Wars new show. Bad Batch season 3, the premiere, all 3 episodes. Great stuff. Next week, what thread do you think that episode focuses on? Do we shift back to Wrecker and Hunter, since we seem to be in every other at this point in time?
Yeah, I feel like episode 4 is probably going to do a bit of a split narrative.
Okay.
Because I feel like there's too much immediacy to follow up with
what happened at the end there.
With Omega and with Crosshair as they escape, that you can't take a full episode off from them just because they're actively being pursued, their ship is damaged, barely made it out. I'm sure that we may pick up on that thread immediately and then kind of jump back to Wrecker and Hunter in their where they are now, picking up from that thread. So I do think that we may be in a bit of a split narrative, and then probably ignore Tantus for episode 4.
I agree. Let that tire fire burn for an episode or so.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if episode 4 we get to go to Pabu.
They're
already there because we know they're going there to drop off the cadets. So I could see them being on Pabu, still trying to figure out the exact location. And I'm with you. I do hope we split the narrative a bit and we do touch base with Crosshair and Omega, because like you said, it too important to kind of follow up and see what happened. I mean, it was almost a cliffhanger ending. They get away and then what's next. So
Here's a question I have for you, and I don't want to derail us too much. So these clones are still kids. When were they created? Because if we're taking it as fucking Kamino was destroyed, what, a year or two ago? Like 2 years ago?
Yeah, Nick, they probably were the last batch to come out, like last year of the Clone War, because, you know, they age from 0 to 10, I believe, pretty quickly.
Yeah, like before they even leave the Kamino facility, they age up that much. So that's what I was trying to figure out. It's like, okay, if there's 2 years between when Kamino was destroyed and now, like, does that age progression match where those kids should be? Because those clones age pretty fucking fast up to a point, and then it doesn't.
I remember in season 1 when, you know, the show was taking place on Kamino, there were cadets. So I'm just assuming those were the ones we saw. They moved them off Kamino, like they said, and just started fucking them up and doing tests and whatnot.
Yeah, so that was just my only thought there, was like, I wonder, like, when that had to be the last batch of clones that were created.
That's where the Empire's like, nah, we can't afford any more of these shits, even though we have 3 teen boys staying alive in a cave on a planet that eats people.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
like, you don't want soldiers like that. Like,
yeah, I mean, they're making weapons out of sticks and gears, and like I said, Lure the Flies, but they were surviving. Yeah. They made it.
They made it. All
right. Sure. So, I think I'll go with you next week. Let's do the split narrative. We pick up with Hunter and Wrecker on Pabu as they plan their next move, and we kind of get to see where Crosshair and Omega end up. If we do go to Tantus, I could see it being late, and we potentially get a call, a holo chat to a bounty hunter from Hemlock, maybe something like that.
Yeah, or they like send out the super clone, or, you know, that like mystery character, the true believer, like he gets dispatched.
Exactly.
Like
okay, well, that takes care of our Bad Batch deep dive. Ben Rye bringing up Mike Zero. Yeah, I know you're somewhat new here, but Mike Zero is someone you should never go to if you actually want to listen to real Star Wars talk.
Actual information.
Right, yeah, he's an expert at making up bullshit and clickbait, and somehow has a huge following because of it. Most of the people that say they love Star Wars but actually hate it deep down, that's who goes to Mike Zero. No, Bat, you're right. I think Fennec gets called, but I don't think she's gonna turn her in. I don't know. I feel like their paths together might benefit Omega if Fennec gets called into the fray. But you never know. Money moves these type of people.
Yeah.
We know Cad's confirmed. We know Fennec's confirmed. So we're just hoping Boba Fett makes an appearance. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, it's time to move into this week's fan segment. It feels like now we're going to start with, if they have any questions for us, then we'll do their question, and then we'll obviously get into the top 5. But as we always do, we dedicate our last segment of every weekly show to our fans via the Ask Us a Question or a question we ask to you. I'm going to have to do something different with the question of the week. I don't know if I'm missing the times or what, or, you know, obviously people probably can't watch Bad Batch on a Wednesday, but the post, once again, Nick, went to about 80 accounts, saw it.
Yeah.
So only our super fans in Bat and Tones made a comment, which kind of bums me out. But anyways, let me get the screens up here.
It could be that it's just, it's harder to answer because obviously we're doing the show now on show day. So, and as you saw from me being late, people may not have time to watch it before we go live and stuff like that.
Well, so, even last week's was like, what's a prediction for Bad Batch? And no one saw that post either. So it's either the Bad Batch funk like we talked about, or Instagram for us is pretty much toast.
Yeah. Maybe try dropping a GIF version on TikTok and see if we can get some stuff.
I'll start doing dances or something. Although this is like how fucked up social media trends are. The word is now it's no longer vertical, especially on TikTok. Now they want straight horizontals that are like 10 minutes long. It's like we're going back to YouTube videos now.
Yeah, I did see
It's
that.
like, come on.
Ugh,
But
gosh.
if the algo is going to promote it, I should just upload 10 minutes of my review for today and see what happens. You never know. I tried doing shorts. I'm sure they went nowhere. All right. So, Nick, we did get one question this week coming from a diehard. We appreciate you diehards out there like the Nova Toymations, the Tones, the Bats, the Johnnies, the JODs, whoever else is in the live stream right now, the Leagues. But Nova asking us, is chatter on Book of Boba S2 dead? If so, do you think we'll next see him in Thrawn movie? Yes. Chatter on Book of Boba is definitely dead. I haven't seen any heat on that. Haven't gotten anything from Making Star Wars on that. I actually think we will see Boba Fett in Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yeah. That's my thought on it as well. I don't think another season of Book is coming. I do think that with the shifts that have happened at Disney and Lucasfilm in terms of like how they're treating content, that Book of Boba Fett season 2 is just not going to happen. Performance-wise, it was kind of like in the middle of the pack, like it didn't blow viewership out of the water, and then I think that the reviews around it were kind of in the middle as well. And 2, I just don't know if you need another solo season to push forward Boba Fett's narrative. I think that you can use him strategically in Mandalorian properties, like you were saying, Matt, like having him in the movie.
He wanted to get back to Merkin, right? I mean, he said at the end of Book of Boba, like, hey, Fennec, this daimyo shit sucks. Let's go kill stuff.
Yeah, like he is 100% ready to like get back on the fucking warpath again. So I do think that would probably be better served in like the large scale conflicts that are to come. So like utilizing him in Mandalorian and Grogu movie, utilizing him in narrative that is around Thrawn's return to the known galaxy as a, like obviously he would be fighting on the side of good at this point, I would imagine.
He'll probably be in both. I just think Mandalorian Grogu makes a ton of sense. They're bros.
Yeah.
They have a history now. They have backstory. They kind of always owe each other, or they're always open to help each other. So why not call up Boba and the Slave One on one of your adventures for the New Republic, or just go check in, see what's going on. It makes too much sense to me. All right. Thank you, Nova, for that. Now moving into our question of the week. Like I said, we do this every week. These days, I'll probably be throwing them up on Tuesdays, maybe Wednesdays. You never know. But you're going to find them on Star Wars Time Dacho on Instagram. You just have to somehow find it, which usually requires you to follow us, like some of our content, and potentially turn on notifications for new posts. All right.
Indeed.
Here we go. What was your favorite or least favorite part from the Bad Batch Season 3 premiere? That's pretty much going to be the question moving forward. What did you like about this week's Bad Batch? So it's probably going to be a light segment, which is fine for Nick and I. So go ahead, buddy. What do we got?
Yeah. All right. Tones 1138. Everybody knows Tones in here, or you should.
Oh, real quick.
Yes.
Kudos to Team SWTS, at least the Discorders. Us motherfuckers, we raised Tone and his son. Tone's mother passed away. And his son kicked off kind of like a British GoFundMe for the hospice that took care of her.
Yep.
And, Tones, he's like, hey, whatever, you guys, this is the link, check it out. These motherfuckers, these low-life Star Wars Time show fans, us, from Discord, raised $400.
Yeah, I donated as well the other day. I think Tones may have posted something on his Instagram, and I saw it, so I tossed him. Hey, look,
I am proud of Team SWTS, because I figure you're all just pieces of shit like me, and you wouldn't do anything like that. And it's not like a lot of channels, they'll jump on this type of stuff, fundraisers. We didn't make a big deal out of it, but just in our little Discord, which isn't that active, we still generated that amount of cash for Brother Tone. So thank you to all of you motherfuckers out there, you fandos. That kind of touched me a little bit. I just like the Grinch. I was like, oh shit, there's the heart for a second.
Yeah, no, I mean it's amazing that we have people in the community. Hell
yeah, dude. Like I said, it shocked me.
Yeah, so appreciate that for all of you out there who did donate. And if you are interested in donating, The link that Tone shared is still in our Discord, so you can join the Discord.
We need him to wear a GoPro though, because he's gonna go jump out of a fucking plane after this. So.
I was like, he's going skydiving. Like he's going skydiving as a part of the.
Let's go, Tones. We want footage. We want early access, brother.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Nick. Go ahead. Read.
Yes, Tone says having the batch back is so good. Loved all 3 episodes, but having Danny Logan voicing the Elder clone Mox in episode 2 was a great move.
Agreed.
Yeah, 100%. 2797 Studios, Bat. He says there was a lot to like in the first 3. My favorite part had to be the Crosshair and Omega escaping together. Can't wait to see where this all goes. And that's it.
Yeah, see how much more fun you could have if you leave a comment. So next week, if you're just hearing this for the first time, write yourself a little reminder. Look on Tuesday, Wednesday, StarWarsTime.show on Instagram to find the prompt, either in the stories, definitely in the profile grid.
And then, hey, you have up until we go live.
That's right.
To drop your comments in. So if you feel like, oh no, I'm too late and we haven't started yet, go ahead and drop.
That's usually why we're late to start the shows, because I'm still trying to see if anyone wants to leave an answer.
Yeah. So yes, good stuff there. Thank you, Tones and Bat, for your comments. Hopefully everybody will be pleased with Bad Batch moving forward, and we can get some more commentary on these posts. So good stuff there. But now we're going to move into our next part of the fan segment. That is the top 5 Star Wars fan artist features of the week. That is curated through our Instagram account. So if you are an Instagram Star Wars artist, or you know anybody who is, you should instruct those people to 1, follow at StarWarsTime.show on Instagram, and 2, add tag at StarWarsTime.show in all of their Instagram Star Wars posts to make sure that you fall into the running to get picked for the top 5 Star Wars fan artist features of the week. That's how I pick them. I pick them from our tagged photos. But if you want to get involved, you can also get involved through Matt's weekly or Matt's daily shares. Matt,
except for Wednesday. I can tell you right now, people.
Wednesday's no longer.
Almost on hour 14 of being at the desk. So yeah, the Wednesday features are probably going to die as I cover Bad Batch this season. You never know. I mean, today was a triple episode. That's a fucking beast of a thing to work through, to process. But maybe next week, because we'll be down to 1 episode. But he's not kidding. You got to tickle both our taints. I'm hashtag Star Wars Time Show and ad tag. He is ad tag only. So if you want to show up on the show, add that tag. Real quick, Nick, we got to read this comment from our boy Devin Doty, one of our hammers, one of our wrenchers. Oh, yes. The best part of the Bad Batch is when SWTS covers the Bad Batch. And that's why he is a lieutenant, my friends.
We tell you everything that happened and will happen. Exactly. We're never wrong on this show. Devin knows.
Batting 1,000 since 2018.
Never been wrong, ever. We're still having.
Just like my take on Luke Skywalker never showing up in live-action Star Wars TV shows.
100%
one of my best. All right, Nick, who do we got?
All right, so to kick off this week in the top 5, it is a clicky. It's a clicky one.
I've got him pulled up. We're good.
This is at Brian's Toy Chest. Brian's _ Toy Chest, and he gives us an amazing look at Master Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Hot Toys 1/6 scale. And really, like, the figure itself looks awesome, of course, but the post-processing, the after effects that Brian added to this shot is amazing. The shadowing used in the background, the highlight color across the eyes, the incredible work on the lightsaber effects.
Yeah, dude, I mean, look at the really dust particles being highlighted from the lightsaber glow.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely incredible work in, the after effects of this shot. Just really brings it to life and captures the essence of Kenobi, especially a Kenobi that is a little bit more wary. So yeah, I mean, I saw the shot.
Yeah,
that just looks like Ewan.
I was kind of glad you found this, because Brian's _ Toy Chest, they are a new follower of ours, a new user of the tags, if you will. So I just started seeing Brian's work pop up maybe a week or 2 ago, and clearly it resonated with you as well. But I'm a fan of Brian, obviously, because of the 1/6 scale photography, but predominantly portrait work. And there's some great portraits on this page that I'm scrolling through right now. I think he does a great job on post with lighting in particular. So yeah, Brian's _ toy chest, a new user of hashtag Star Wars Time Show.
And a first-time top fiver. So there you go. That's what happens.
See,
add tag.
Just got to do. You got to do the work. You got to do the work.
All right. Good stuff. Next up is one of our favorites. Obviously,
He's
this
returned,
is 97
man.
parsecs.
When I saw this, when I saw them pop back up, I'm like, shit. They have been gone for a while.
Yeah, I did note. I mean, like, obviously, Robert is incredible at this craft, and it's hard for me when he's in the feed to not feature him. So I
guaranteed. Oh, he's back. Here you go.
Like I do make a concerted effort that after I feature him in 1 week, I try to not
take a week off.
Yeah, take at least a week. But yeah, it's been a while since we saw anything from 97, and he comes back with a banger, of course, and the banger is the Mando, Din, and Grogu killing some pikes. And that's always a favorite of ours, is when we get to see dad and son in action, and that's exactly what's going on here. A very dynamic shot from 97 parsecs photography. Mando and Grogu surrounded by enemies, and then they're just taking them all out. So
yeah, it is. I mean, it's like I said, I didn't quite realize, because I look at this shit every day. I'm looking at people's Star Wars art, so I see a lot of it, more than probably everyone that listens to the show that does toy photography. It's ridiculous. But when he popped back, I'm like, shit, that's right. 97 has been kind of taking a break, but it is, as Nick said, it's as soon as you see it in the feed, you instantly know where the work is coming from, who did the shot, who set these things up. And apparently, this looks like the new Black Series, but it kind of doesn't. What I'm trying to say here, Nick, there's a new Mandalorian figure, 1/12 scale going around that everyone is calling the Ultimate from Hasbro. It's based on his Glavis appearance from Book of Boba Fett, and I can't tell if that's what 97's using or if this is Mafex. In the end, doesn't matter. It's a good looking shot. Check them out on Instagram, 97 _ parsecs _ photography.
There we go. Good stuff. Next up, My Father Django. And My Father Django is going to bring us back to the Ahsoka time. He's bringing us back to a better time when our good friend Baylan Skoll, aka Ray Stevenson, was still with us. And this is a very poignant shot of Baylan. Could be exactly where we left him off, standing on a mountaintop looking off into the distance, his orange lightsaber ignited at his side. And I imagine that he's just thinking about the quest ahead to get him to the monastery on Peridia. And it's just a fantastic shot. And it really does capture that essence of Baylan really well. Yeah,
it's a great little stoic looking portrait there. I also, I'm not gonna lie, I like that orange effect there. Job well done on the orange. You can clearly tell it's orange, not red. You got the hood up. Sometimes getting the hoods up on these little dicks is not as easy as you would think. So I got to give My Father Django credit on that. Just good looking, natural light outdoor shot where it all started for me. I'll always appreciate the outdoor photographers. So check them out at My Father Django on Instagram.
100%. All right. Next up, we have at Revens _ Toy Picks. And Revens Toy Picks is giving us an awesome shot of our girl Sabine Wren, lightsaber ignited, running through a field of explosions. Honestly, people are getting really good at emulating the bokeh style of Jared, of Sir Dork.
Well, it's because he's a master that teaches, Nick. Yeah, every week he's putting out content to educate.
And it's whenever I see shots like this, I really do think to myself, I'm like, they've been watching Jared's videos. They've been watching Sir Dork on YouTube and learning how to do this. And these people who have been, following this playbook, you can see the progression of their work. Like you can see, like you can scroll back in their timelines and you can see like where they started and like, you know, what they've learned and everything. But this one in particular, like, just really did give me Sir Dork vibes because of the bokeh, because of the posing. And it really is like an awesome dynamic shot of like Sabine on a battlefield with her lightsaber.
She's
igniting.
practicing out there on Peridia. Remember, she got a taste of the Force, and now she can't put it down. It's very much
That's
like
right.
heroin, as I've heard from other Force users. So yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head. It is. He does. He has like disciples at this point in time, and I'm happy for our buddy Jared. But we're talking about at Revens_toypicks Instagram.
Indeed. Killer shot. Well done. And to close out the top 5 this week, we have an awesome shot here from at dankferric.toys on Instagram. It's a really cool setup.
It's awesome.
Yeah, based on the Kenobi series. So what we see here is our good Inquisitor friend right up front, helmet off. This is, yes, we know his head isn't the same shape as it was in Rebels, but guess what? It was still pretty cool. So we get the Inquisitor here walking alongside some stormtroopers in formation, and then in the background you can see transport shuttle and 2 TIEs taking off. I mean, really what's impressive about this shot is just like he fits so much into this shot, and it all works really well. Everything is standing, the posing is good, the lighting is good, and it's just overall, it's just a really well executed shot here by Dank Ferric Toys.
Yeah, dude, I'm with you. I also appreciate the mixed scale going in there. I mean, there's no way those ties in the Lambda class shuttle are 1/12 scales. They're probably micro galaxy squadron, so super tiny. So it's a great little in-camera effect there. But like you said, just getting all these little dickheads to line up and look like there's an actual body in them and that they're not just posed plastic is always a difficult challenge. And dankferric.toys has just nailed it on this one. It really, I mean, it just, you feel like you're watching an Imperial procession of sorts. So job well done at dankferric.toys. Instagram.
Indeed. Well done. And that's it. That's the end of the top 5. And that's the end of our show for this week. I'm sorry to all of you that I was not able to make the opening half of the show. I had work go late and could not get on in time, but I'm glad that I made it in time for the breakdowns and to talk about the initial drop of Bad Batch. And I'm excited to see where this season goes. But that's it. That's it for this episode. So Matt, take us home.
I just like Nick's new, but we got some purple lights back there now.
I was in such a rush that usually I turn on my overhead light when we start, but I do have colored lights in my room that I turn on when I come up here at night.
I'm going to say
I turn those on to try to give a bit of ambiance.
Yeah, this may be the better look in my opinion. I dig it. It actually lights pretty well compared to the overhead.
And I do have I got a new webcam that has a ring light built into it, so I turned the ring light on my webcam. So that's probably helping.
I mean, what was the community think here? But I'd say stick with this moving forward. I like it.
Yeah, that can be done.
All right, good. Because my light's a little harsh today. I can see it. I am like Casper White in today's video. I'm a pretty white guy, but my face is probably blinding. If I take my hat off, I'll definitely blind people. Oh, a plane just crashed. All right, everyone. As Nick said, it's time to go. It was probably, I always like when Nick is here for the full show, but I'm not gonna lie, buddy. We probably saved ourselves at least 20 minutes. This is like a gift. We're done before 7:30 or even 8 some of these days. So I'll take it. But you know what? We'll be here next week. Maybe we'll start at 5. Maybe Nick will be here. Maybe you won't. Maybe I won't be here. You never know. But that is the beauty of the Star Wars Time Show and why we need to tell your friends that aren't fandos yet that they need to come and join the party. So the best way to do that, the way to sell them, or the way to just make it easier for them to follow the Star Wars Time Show on all platforms is to send them over to StarWarsTime.net. That's right, our home on the internet. I actually threw up, I think, 2 or 3 posts over the past 7 days, so the site came alive again. But like I said, the most important part about StarWarsTime.net are all the links. You know, if you want to listen, you don't like looking at our faces or our crappy graphics or our ticker that I haven't changed in 2 or 3 podcasts, so it has really old news on it. You can listen to us on podcast platforms. Just go to StarWarsTime.net, click on subscribe to podcasts, and pick the one that suits you. We got Apple, Google, Spotify, Android, Amazon, Pandora, Blueberry, email, Podchaser, TuneIn, Deezer, RSS, iHeartRadio. Who even knew that half these companies still existed? But if they do, our podcast is on their platform. So don't forget, StarWarsTime.net. You can even find the YouTube stuff over there. Just click on it, and it'll be in the right sidebar. It will subscribe the channel for you. We know how lazy some of you are. We try to make it as easy as possible. All we ask is that in between our shows, you support our content when you see it. Leave some comments, share it around, pop it into a story. Turn your notifications on for our content, because you never know what's going to drop. We try to put something out daily. We're grinding mofos over here. So don't forget, there's always time for Star Wars Time. Next week, we'll be back to break down Bad Batch, S3, E4, and whatever else we find interesting for the Star Wars Time show community. All right, everyone. I'm going to leave you, as I always do, with some words of encouragement and a Star Wars Time show blessing. But if you listen to our show, if you consume our content, the Force will be with you always.